Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon. I am Clara de la Torre. I am currently Deputy Director General in the Commission dealing with climate action, but until very recently I've been working most of my life in research and innovation policy. So this is why it's a pleasure for me being here with you all. We are in a session called It's a Bio World. And for the experts among you, I'm sure you know what they're talking about. For the non-experts, we say, what are we talking about? We know that we've been doing for a long time biotechnology, and we've been using humankind. Humankind has been using living beings for solving problems, and we have produced medicines, and we have done agriculture in one way or another, and we have produced food. All this was done with biotechnology. Then we have more recently, some years ago already, but still more recently, used and applied the concept of bioeconomy. And what is bioeconomy? Bioeconomy is the production of renewable biological resources and the conversion of these resources and waste streams into value-added products, such as bio-based products and bioenergy. We know that this is a field which is of extreme importance for the sustainability of our economy, not least for the climate change. But those that know tell us that biology is much more than that. And this is precisely what we are going to do here today. We'd like to hear about developments that are behind terms like biologicalization, bio-inspired principles, biointelligent manufacturing, biomimetrics, biomachining, and so on. So this session is part of the co-design of our strategic programming for Horizon Europe, the Future Framework Program, and we would like to have some input here to shape what are we going to introduce in that part of the framework program dealing with biology beyond bioeconomy. We have the honor of having a fantastic panel. And since we are short of time, I will just leave the secret of who they are, even if they are going to be seen in the screen. And I will unveil who each of them is whenever they are going to take the floor. So I would like, without further ado, to invite and to welcome Dr. Christola Peratta, who is Professor of Chemical Engineering in MIT. And she's going to introduce us into the subject. Afterwards, we will have introductory statements by each of the members of the panel. Then we'll have a round of questions that I have prepared for them, and hopefully we'll have some time to have some discussion among them, but as well with you. So without taking more time, Dr. Peratta, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a bio world. That much is clear and undeniable. As we look around this room filled with biological beings, as we think about the trees and flowers we passed on our way to the convention center today, the fruits and vegetables and grains, and perhaps meat, poultry, and fish that we ingested so far this day, there is no doubt that our world is one that is filled with biological plants and animals. If we look around this room again, we also see products of a decidedly non-biological world. The built environment is evidence of advances in technology with historical roots rooted more in physics and chemistry than biology, but that history, when compared to biology, is not nearly as long, deep, or rich. Biology as technology has played a major role in human civilization for thousands of years. Examples include the production of fermented foods and beverages to provide nutrition, and in some cases to provide safe drinking water, and the use of plants and plant extracts as therapeutics, taking advantage of the numerous biologically active natural products that compose nature's pharmacy. In these examples, the natural processes of biological organisms were exploited to enable humans to thrive. But some may argue that this is not really technology. For certain, biotechnology took the stage with the arrival of recombinant DNA and genetic engineering methods. This led to the emergence of a biotech industry starting in the 1970s, one that was initially largely focused on the development and delivery of recombinant proteins as therapeutics. In fact, the biopharmaceutical industry became synonymous with the word biotech. Yet in the past 2 decades, the rainbow of biotechnologies has disrupted this notion of biotech as simply biopharma. Green biotechnology, white biotechnology, blue biotechnology have all brought new products, new processes, and new ideas to market. And of course, I'm leaving out other colors that have achieved varying levels of success. Given the ways in which the biotech industry has grown so far, it's of course appropriate to ask, what's next? How can biology continue to improve human lives? How can biology transform society in ways that solve our most pressing global problems? And in the context of this session, how can biotech transform the industrial sector? In answering these questions, my intention is to suggest goals that will undoubtedly lead to even more questions, some also to be asked by the other speakers. But that's why I assume we're all here, to decide what to ask so that we can collectively search for answers. So let's consider some opportunities for the bio world to continue its evolution. Number 1, increasing the range of what biology can make. Biology, it turns out, is a terrific chemist. The structure and function of biological organisms is provided by both small molecules and larger macromolecules, all of which are produced from chemical reactions taking place inside of cells. Thousands of such reactions take place with hundreds of reactants. Metabolic engineering emerged to provide a set of practices to enable the production of very large quantities of specific chemicals in order to produce them economically. This is one of the hallmarks of white biotech or the bioeconomy, using sustainable bio-derived reactants to produce chemical compounds. But we still can't make enough compounds cheaply enough to disrupt the traditional chemical industry that is based on non-renewable fossil feedstocks. And producing complex molecules like biodegradable plastics is even more difficult to do with the right economics. We need to advance the range of products accessible from biology, moving towards more sustainable production of not just the chemicals, but also the materials that enable quality standards of living. Number 2, diversifying the inputs used for biomanufacturing. Most successful examples of bioproducts manufacturing utilize feedstocks like glucose or other simple carbohydrates as the starting substrate. Glucose is terrific for this purpose, but the positive impact on the environment afforded by white biotech would be even greater if the feedstocks used could be obtained from materials now considered to be waste. As one example, consider the organic fraction of municipal solid waste. This includes large volume food scraps and lignocellulosic materials such as cardboard or cardstock. Diverting these materials from landfills to manufacturing facilities could both reduce end waste and produce these much-needed carbon-based chemicals and materials. Number 3, waste remediation and water reuse. Biotechnology has been effectively used for municipal wastewater treatment for decades. More recently, waste as a feedstock has been demonstrated with both pilot and commercial scale plants, such as those operated by LanzaTech that capture CO2 from power plants through fermentation to alcohols. But what about other opportunities for waste remediation? Can the bio world clean heavy metals from industrial waste streams, particularly those from the electronics industry, both before and after they've contaminated surrounding land? Can it remediate water in a way that facilitates its reuse, thereby reducing the demand by industry? Can it tackle the most promising need for remediation of industrial and consumer waste, including the tons of plastics that now litter the globe? Number 4, process intensification. Process intensification is a term used to describe the improvement of industrial processes in a manner that improves efficiency and sustainability. It frequently involves the use of extensive process monitoring, leading to changes in process control, which depends heavily on computer science and automation. How can biotech be applied to the challenges of process intensification? Although that term is frequently used in the context of very large single-site facilities, a new mode of thinking might be required in this case. The natural bio world is broadly distributed. Should the industry of the bio world also be distributed? For example, providing on-site instead of centralized water remediation and fuel production. How can process intensification be applied at this scale, creating efficiencies even at home? Number 5, manufacturing flexibility. Biomanufacturing provides a particular opportunity that is not easily afforded by chemical manufacturing. A single chemical reactor has a limited number of reactants and is capable of performing a limited number of reactions. However, a biological reactor, a microbial cell, for example, already performs thousands of chemical reactions involving hundreds of molecules. Using artificial regulatory networks, these cells can be engineered to only make one of those molecules in large quantities at a given time. It's also possible to engineer a single cell with the potential to make significant quantities of multiple products with a specific target selected based on demand. This type of multi-capable manufacturing is especially attractive in a decentralized, distributed view of manufacturing that I mentioned in the previous point. Addressing all of these problems is definitely in the realm of the bio world, and biotechnology should aim to tackle them. But as noted in some of these examples, we will need more than biotech to make progress towards these goals. None of these challenges are strictly of a biological nature. Thus, the approaches taken to find solutions will require the integration of biology with other technologies, including digital control and automation. Biomimics are often used to create mechanical and digital systems that recreate the behavior of biological systems, and biology can even serve as a template to build non-biological devices. The new bioworld will require both real and mimicked biological systems to truly realize transformative change. In her new book, The Age of Living Machines, former MIT President Susan Hockfield refers to this cross-disciplinary integration as Convergence 2.0. And in case you're wondering, Convergence 1.0 was the integration of physics and engineering that led to the digital age. Lastly, I would be remiss if I did not spend some time talking about the challenges and opportunities to prepare this current generation and the next generation of students and researchers to apply these technologies to advance human well-being by both helping to solve our most pressing global problems and helping to ensure that we do not mistakenly create even bigger ones. In considering the need for proper preparation, I'd like to read to you the following quote by Professor Woody Flowers, now Emeritus Professor of Mechanical Engineering at MIT and co-founder of the International First Robotics Competition. And I quote, "I believe that education and training are different. To me, training is an essential commodity that will certainly be outsourced to digital systems and be dramatically improved in the process. Education is much more subtle and complex and is likely to be accomplished through mentorship or apprentice-like interactions between a learner and an expert." Professor Flowers is clear that both education and training are important, but they differ greatly in how they are delivered. Given this distinction, it's important to ask, what should be the appropriate balance between education and training in our universities? Are there opportunities to accelerate the digital delivery of training to make it more accessible, more scalable, and perhaps more economical? What role should academic-industrial partnerships play in education and/or training? As I have mentioned, and as you'll hear from the other speakers, the new bio world is one built on the convergence of multiple traditional disciplines, including biology, chemistry, physics, computer science, and many branches of engineering. And of course, we want practitioners to operate in this new bio world in a safe and ethical manner. Achieving the technological advances we seek will require that all of these disciplines be brought together. This raises the following questions. What is the role of traditional disciplines like biology, or my field, chemical engineering, as biotechnology and the bio world expand? How much should we endeavor to teach a little bit of everything versus a lot of fewer things? That is, how much to focus on breadth versus depth? And what is the right mix of interdisciplinary education in one person versus one team of persons? How can we capture the increasing scope of biotechnology to teach students what they will need to know given the constraints of time, that is, the number of hours per week and the number of years per degree? How do we increase the mathematics and computer science component of biotechnology training, which is now becoming indispensable, particularly in the new industries? If I had the so-called correct answers to these questions, I would be more than happy to give them to you today. Instead, I challenge all of us to consider what it means to be educated versus trained, to ask what the profile of the leaders of this new bioindustry will be, and to develop programs to help bring this new bio-world vision, fueled by Convergence 2.0, to reality. I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion that follows.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you very much, Christola. So we see, we'll come back to that, but we see that there are many potentials that at least I didn't know. I have to apologize to our speakers because I'm messing them with the order because I have made a mistake. So that not to complicate things, we'll do in the order that they are sitting. Apologies, I have mixed up my pages. So let me introduce to you Fernando Moreno Herrero, who is biophysicist in the SIC, and he is also, for several times, I think, ERC grantee of the European Research Council. Fernando, the floor is yours. You can stay sitting or come, as you wish.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to be here and to talk a little bit about this fascinating field. So, biological materials are characterized by their ability to self-organize, self-grow, adapt, and evolve under different adverse conditions. Biological systems made of biological materials do not create waste, and they enrich and sustain the ecosystem. Moreover, they provide properties with minimal use of energy and fully recyclable products. Today, there are already a number of examples of bioinspiration, advanced addition to surfaces based on research on the exceptional ability of the gecko to walk on vertical and upside-down surfaces, super hydrophobicity based, for instance, on the surface of the lotus leaf, or materials that mimic the properties of shark skin, which is intended to enable a more efficient movement through water. So why is all this possible? Essentially because we know quite a lot already about the biology behind of these processes. Still, we are at the beginning of the road. The number of world's biological organisms is reckoned to be between 10 million to 100 million. But only a small number of them have been identified, and even lesser number have been fully studied. It is obvious that the potential knowledge to be gained from biology is enormous. Investing in basic research is not only important for the development of new materials, but also to the discovery of tools that can impact biomedicine and applied research. A paradigmatic example for this is the discovery and development of gene editing methods based on CRISPR-Cas9, which is called to be a revolution in biomedicine in the coming years. So talking about bioworld is talking about sustainability of the planet as well. For that, we should abandon fossil fuel industry that contribute to CO2 emissions and global warming. Electricity should be produced by renewable sources. We should move from an economy based on oil and their derivatives to a biology-driven world. This includes the development of materials that can degrade without polluting, but also those that can recycle the energy used by us. For instance, imagine bio-inspired materials that can produce energy by the impact of people walking on a pedestrian path or cars running on a highway. Imagine sustainable buildings that can generate and accumulate energy, taken from the sun through all the surface of the building, and that can recycle all the residues produced by the inhabitants. Efficiency was not in the priority list of goods production industry for decades, but this needs to change if we want to survive the major threats. So in summary, I would like to raise here 2 points. One is to abandon fossil fuel industry to generate electricity from new emission sources, and 2, to recycle the energy and the waste used in daily processes. My proposal is to look at biology as an inspiring source, and for that we should keep investing in basic research to understand the inner workings of biological processes and to facilitate the transfer of that knowledge to the industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Indeed, biology as an inspiration for the carbonization of the economy. Our second speaker of the panel is Marilyn Doctrum, and she's a biophysicist as well, and she's professor from the University of Delft in the Netherlands. As you wish, they're here.
Stay here. Thank you very much for putting together this session and allowing us to contribute. So as already pointed out by the previous speakers, and I'm sure we will hear more examples later, we have a huge opportunity right now to really use principles from biology and biological systems themselves to use for a really long-term sustainable society, and has been very well explained by Chris in her introductory remarks. And it's sometimes said that the 21st century is the century of biology or biotechnology, unlike physics, which we had in the past. I am a physicist. And it will really provide us with a lot of possibilities for new types of solutions across a wide field of applications. So we've heard about materials, compounds, but food systems for more sustainable production methods, but maybe also fuels, and even in medicine. So we can think of new systems to produce new medications and even systems to test medications. So what I will use my 3 minutes for here is to make a prediction that in the future we will not only be limited to what nature offers us in terms of biological systems that we can use, but we eventually will also be able to build mimics, you could say, of biological cells themselves. We are not able to do that yet, but in the future this will come. And you have to realize that we now very successfully use biological system cells, as was explained, that were not originally designed by nature to make the products that we ask them to make. They are there to transfer their genes to offspring and things like this, and then can do many other things simultaneously. But we have engineered very clever methods to modify these cells and make them actually, as was also explained, convince them to make single products in high quantities that are useful to us. So what will be possible in the future is that we will also, from scratch, be able to build such cells, but maybe engineered and designed and optimized for one particular purpose. And this will have the advantage that we can really control and optimize for what we want these cells to make. So this is something that is not possible yet. Even though we are very successful in using biology, and even though we know a lot about cells, we know the genome of many different species, we have fantastic techniques to engineer these genomes. It's also fair to say that if you start from the molecular components that both Chris and Fernando mentioned, we really do not understand yet how to put these together to make a cell live. So in essence, we do not know how it works. It's a really fundamental barrier in our knowledge. And if we one day want to be able to not only use cells, but also build them, this is something, a barrier that we have to cross. So that requires fundamental science, but I think once in the future we will have such systems. I envision that they will be like mimics, simple mimics of real cells, but really working based on the knowledge, the principles that make real cells work. And this will, of course, give us new technology, but it will also impact biotechnology as we are already successfully using it. So we have, a lot still to do, but I think. There's also elsewhere in the world people are thinking about this, but I think Europe is really in a good position to be a technology leader in this field, also because Europe has invested a lot already in fundamental science that is needed for this, for example, with the ERC program. So I think we should really take advantage of this situation and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We are not limited to what nature produces. We'll come back to that, I'm sure. Our next speaker is Kerstin Funk from Fraunhofer Gesellschaft in Germany. And Dr. Funk is coordinating the Biological Transformation Initiative. The floor is yours.
Well, I very much appreciate to be part of this session, and I'm very impressed about the thoughts that already have been put forward in terms of these topics. I don't have a strong background in any of those fields that I addressed here, actually, but as it has been said, I'm the coordinator of a strategic initiative we have at the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft. It's called Biological Transformation. Biological transformation is coined 3 years ago, and it was the idea, or what was planned, is that we want to set up a framework that actually, puts our production in a more sustainable way, and that is supposed to be beyond bioeconomy, beyond Industry 4.0. And the idea behind is that we use biological materials and biological strategies in our sustainable industry, and that we do this in a much more strategic and systematic way. And if you look at industry in the past, they actually focused on production efficiency, on cost efficiency, but right now we have new boundary decisions. I mean, industry is aware now of scarcity of resources. They are aware that society and also policies are calling for sustainable solutions. There are new boundary conditions set, which actually makes a system that's even more complex than before, than we know it from the Industry 4.0. And so what can we do? What is we at the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft? We started this process 3 years ago, and we finished last year a research project refining the idea behind biological transformation. And what we first defined were 3 modes of biological transformation, which is the inspiring mode, which is the integration mode, and which is also the let's say communication mode, because we have to find a communication between biological and technology system, which is a very challenging task actually, because it's totally new. And we involved more than 100 experts from research and from industry in this research project, and we also found that there were more than 200 research topics that are actually related to this whole thing. So maybe the question is, what is beyond bioeconomy here? Well, bioeconomy concentrates on biogenic materials and the circularity within this field, but this doesn't cover all the production issues that industry has to face. So the biological transformation is much more a holistic view on production, and well, I think future let's call it biointelligent factories, they will think of materials, for example, or material systems in a totally new way. We will be able to, have a CPS. We will be able to control the biological systems, and we also will integrate systematic strategies of nature in a full new way. Just think of. Just a few seconds. Just think of a processing system where the product design and also the process itself, it's actually modified in the process. The process for performance is modified in the process. And think of tools that adjust to local loads and that repair themselves. Those are all biological strategies. If they put them together, we have totally new opportunities. And we should. I think that it's most important that we that not old or the same minds with the same technology, or the same minds with the same ideas try to find the new solutions. We have to get inspired by all technologies and by all scientific fields and put them together. And I think that's one of the most difficult tasks also for the European Commission to create a funding scheme that allows different sciences to inspire each other.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is coming from the University of Ghent, and he is called Cornel Rabai. Sorry about the pronunciation.
It's wonderful.
Sorry?
It's wonderful.
Thank you. And he's an environmental engineer in Ghent, Belgium. Please.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to continue a bit from a process perspective. If I look at biology in this context, I see two things to address. First, that biology allows resource efficiency. When you look at a gut metabolism, a production process, a remediation process, it's typically efficient. The second thing is that nature biology is not a centralized process. It's decentralized. Biological units, biological systems adapt to local conditions, and an individual units function and evolves within the carrying capacity of an environment. Now, since agricultural times, we've kind of stepped away from this, mainly from an economy of scale perspective. If you look at production systems now, they are very large, basically from an economic perspective. And we're starting to see the consequence of that now on environment, climate, logistics. Those same production systems require a lot of transport, so there's issues with logistics, air quality. So we need to move our society, at least for part of our activities, back to these biological systems. And doing this requires that we make adaptable systems. And adaptable systems are already ongoing. Look at microelectronics, the developments in the swarm, distributed computing. Energy as well is redistributing. Aspects such as solar energy are from a decentralized manner contributing to the energy fabric. It doesn't mean we need to get rid of everything centralized. We need to look at contributions. So if you want to do any development in this space, you're going to have to be cross-cutting. You need multiple disciplines. This has been mentioned before. You need multiple application sectors coming together. And that's the only way to do an integrated development. We also need to dare. The next sentence may be quite heavy, but we need to avoid that there's an inflation of innovation towards replication. All right? We need to be bold in the science that we do and not replicate. So let me finish with a few examples that stem from my own interest from biological systems. If I think of health, we need to move to tailored, personalized human health system. For example, adding bacteria to drinking water, to shower water, to steer and engineer your microbiome. Not just in the gut, but on your skin, for example. If you think of the environment, we need to evolve towards resilient local water systems, make and recover water, even at single home level. And for this, we need to think about closed loop systems, a bit what's being developed for space applications through the MELISA program. And biology is essential in this because biology allows for transformations, while physical chemistry typically allows more for separations. We can, with bacteria, biomineralize, we can biocrystallize, right? And we can drive these processes with renewable energy. Key with biology is going to also to electrify biotechnology. Similarly, clean up the environment locally for sediments, soils. You have to think about in situ, driven by electricity, not requiring chemicals. And lastly, production systems. Production systems can be driven with renewable energy to add value, bioproduction to it at small and at large scale. And a large scale example is, for example, our food and our feed. New protein sources for which we need to really move away from the sugar model. And we need to move away from the soy model. And we need to move away from straight agriculture systems. So yes, I'm talking about coupling to chemical industry, steel industry, use their side streams, gaseous or building blocks in an integrated approach towards agriculture. And this is possible at million-ton scale and will allow us to become more self-sustaining in Europe. So biology has to contribute to what I would call one European metabolism. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Adaptable systems, indeed. This is one of the features that we need to deploy in our energy and transport systems. And last but not least, we have Cecilia Lasky. who is an industrial bioengineer and biorobotics expert from the Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna in Pisa, Italy. The floor is yours.
Thanks. So I'm a roboticist, as you heard. And, it always seems that there is a huge robotics market about to become reality in very near future. We often hear this, and it's probably very true. And Europe is in a very good competitive position in robotics. We are strong in research. We publish a lot of papers, but we also have a very strong tradition for as manufacturers of robots. That's important. So we have this tradition in building industrial robots, and more recently in building service robots. What do we mean by service robots? They are those robots that are not used in factories, but they are used or expected to use in our environments, in our cities, in our homes, on the human side, And this kind of environments are much more challenging for machines, for robots, and this is where biology can help. So sort of bio-inspired approaches in robotics already demonstrated to be successful when you want to build a robot that can negotiate natural environments, our environments. So what do we want to learn from biology, from nature, by observing living beings? We want to learn how to make a complex system work efficiently, effectively in a complex world without simplifying the system. This is what roboticists usually do. We simplify the system, the number of sensors and actuators. We simplify the environment, like in the industrial settings, while we want to have a complex system, a complex world, working easily, smoothly, efficiently. So we want to simplify control, simplify their behavior, and this is what you can observe in living beings. We can learn a lot if we really understand the principles and can translate those principles into models, mathematical models that can become engineering and robotics and technologies. What did we learn so far? We learned, for example, how to change the materials we use for robots, how to use soft materials, which are very straightforward in living beings, but not so common in robotics. And we saw how they can simply, if we change the body, we can simplify the motor control, the behavior of the robot as well. And we can even dream of robots that can deform, that can adapt their body to their environment or tasks, that can evolve, grow. And we can even think of materials that can self-heal, repair themselves, find the energy in the environment without consuming the resources of the planet. We can even think of a sort of artificial life cycles that at the end brings back those machines into the environment because they're built with biodegradable materials or so. So I think that Europe is the right place to do this. We should really capitalize on our competitiveness in the science and technologies of robotics, but also on the capability that we have in Europe for interdisciplinary research so that we can bring biology into robotics, and also on the cultural background that we have, which is grounded on humanities. So we can dream of building in Europe the next generation of robots that are sustainable from the environmental point of view, the energetic point of view, but also from the economic, social, and ethical point of view.
Thank you very much. So, biology and robotics. So, the speakers have been opening many doors, opening many fields of knowledge in which we have to work together. And I would like now to go for a round of questions. We try and leave some space for the audience to interact with you. Fernando, you are a scientist. You are doing basic research. Sorry for the expression, I know it's quite simplistic. But still, can you tell us, in terms of the knowledge needed for to apply, to get a biological transformation of industry, what is the knowledge basis that is missing and that prevents us from progressing more quickly? In a nutshell, for those of us not experts.
So I guess the first thing we should know is just industry is driven by profitability. So they need to produce benefits for their partners and well, the people that own a company. So the first thing they need to get is that the product that they are getting from the biology that they want to incorporate, they have to be beneficial for them. They have to make money for them. And I can think of examples, for instance, in the field of rare diseases where perhaps a major breakthrough is not incorporated by pharma because the number of potential clients is just very small. So I think this profitability is just one point that we should keep in mind as impediments for achieving this biological transformation of industry. Perhaps the second point is that we don't have enough knowledge for doing that, right? And we should just keep putting fuel, investing in basic research to advance our frontier of knowledge of biological processes, how they work, and that could be incorporated into industry. So that's the second point. And the third point I would like to make here is that communication between biology-driven labs and industry should be improved. Because sometimes we just, as a basic researcher, we just find the product or we just look for a particular protein or so, but we are not thinking of the next step of just putting that into the industry. So this communication, I think, should be very important, and we should just train also researchers to think on the way they do research, just to think on the application of their research. This is something that I would like also to point out. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is indeed the missing link that we have in many sectors, and this one in particular. Thank you very much. Marilyn, then, which are, in your view, the most urgent research that we need so that we can support these new processes in industry?
Yeah, so I think it's a bit related to the previous answer, I think. So to really get to this completely new technology where we use man-made cells to produce products for us, there's still a long way to go. So to expect really fast success from that is suffering from the same problems that we just heard. But I really think if we sort of combine already successful biotechnology with these first steps of really fundamental knowledge of how building blocks work together to make chemical reactions work in a cell specifically, then we can already, by going hand in hand between the biotechnology and the industry that are already using it and the fundamental science, can make fast steps. So you need, I think it's maybe a bit repetitive, you really need both. You need to think about the long-term goals and dare to invest in taking big steps and figuring out things that we still don't really understand, while at the same time talk to potential users of the technology, even if it's in the future, that also can then help us point out things that maybe we think are not yet useful, but they think they is already useful. So you need this interplay from the beginning. Yeah, so to work on it on both these, along both these lines. Yeah.
Thank you. So even if there are still these missing links between the two sectors, we hear from some of your interventions that there has been there are already disruption in several industrial sectors.
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, we meet regularly with potentially with industries that are potentially interested in long term in our products, and not to have projects already together, but just to discuss what might be, what can we already do, how can that already be useful for you now. So to just discuss and look at over each other's shoulder, even if there's no direct interest or gain yet, that I think is really interesting and useful. So, and we try to do that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, Kirsten, in this disruption of the industry, which are the sectors which are more advanced, which are already introducing more these avenues coming from biology, and those that are a little bit slower and would deserve or would gain in involving more biology thinking in their realm?
Well, I actually wouldn't view sectors. I would take a different look at this issue. We are talking, for example, about sustainable production. Well, we have to face the fact that industry right now is very much into Industry 4.0. So we should be careful of, painting a picture again of disruption, because this will be, they could backfire actually.
Disruption was not used in a pejorative sense, was it used in a positive, creative sense? Huh?
But what we have to do, we have to take care of resource efficiency, we have to take care of energy efficiency and of life cycle assessment, of the role of people in the production line. So there are a lot of points that we have to address, and there for sure will be paradigm change, and we already have paradigm changes. It has been addressed. For example, the distributed intelligence. I mean, this is something that comes from nature, and it's also already implemented in logistics, for example. So there is a change already, and there will be a lot more change in future, but it has to be stepwise. The other view is on societal needs. Well, there we already see new trends emerging. So just look at the healthcare sector. We have a change from drug-based medicine to technology-based healthcare. There are a lot of good things going on there, and that's come from biotechnology. The issue there is much more about scalability, about automation, and so on. It is obvious that there will be some market change, but the questions on this side are totally different than on the pure production side.
Indeed, thank you. You were mentioning logistics, and I think Cornel, when he was talking about nature being decentralized, and you made a sort of parallel or a link with logistics and quality of air. So how does this decentralization actually, you see it working in the industrial sector? Are we just thinking of a little bit, getting into a bit of science fiction without wanting to be pejorative? Or are there things that in the medium term can still be done and we have not done?
I love science fiction, but perhaps as a scientist you don't have to mention that too much. Now, I mean, decentralization is already here in multiple sectors. And also for technologies in the biotech space, it exists. But it is not yet competitive enough. And a key reason for me is that if we look at making decentralized smaller systems, we tend to look at the big system and make it smaller. And that's not how nature works. Nature starts from a cell and builds up. Like if we want to build a bioproduction, a bioprocessing line, we have to look at our own gut. You know, in this small volume that we have in our gut of about 1.5 liters or so, we have a whole series of unit processes in sequence that are perfectly aligned to achieve the objective of a biorefinery process, right? That may sound very weird for our gut. So what we need to do, if we want to develop true decentralized systems, is start from scratch and design bottom-up again, rather than top-down.
Okay, that was a good comparison. Cecilia, you were talking about environmentally friendly robots, human-friendly robots. Do you think citizens will buy in this sort of technologies? Or what do we have to do for them to buy in?
I hope so. I mean, what I see from my perspective of robotics is that there is probably this huge market starting. And I've seen other markets that started recently, like the smartphones or computers, and they actually are something completely separated from the natural environment. And at the end of their life, which is even very short actually, they are some kind of waste that we don't know how to manage. So I say, okay, if the robotics market is starting now, let's steer now the direction of this new production. I don't want to see mountains of old robots in third countries in 20 or 30 years from now, as I see today for the cell phone, old cell phones and computers and monitors. So I think that's a good purpose to pursue it, but also I say that because with the bio-inspired approach that I mentioned that we are using in robotics, we are also rethinking the materials, and that's a very good way to try to pursue the objective of new robots more integrated in the environment. And again, I think that Europe is the place where we can do that, because we have already solid science and technology in robotics, and we have also this capability to go beyond. So I think that Europe should invest in it, really, should capitalize with its competitiveness, because robotics can really become an important market, an important industry in Europe, and a sustainable industry in Europe.
So we have to then to make sure that citizens feel them as part of their everyday life, which is even a step further.
Yeah, sure. We are living a time where every day we have new digital devices and apps and software. But robots are part of it, but they are the physical part of it. So robots can really be helpful in unpleasant works, undecent jobs, and in all those physical tasks to do. So.
Indeed. Thank you very much. We go back to our keynote speaker. Christola, you mentioned, all of you mentioned the different disciplines that need to meet somewhere, but you refer specifically, if I remember well, to education. Can you tell us, in your view, which are the main changes that our education systems, which are not everywhere the same, but still there are a number of features which are common to many of them. Which are the features of the education system that you think we would need to change so that these game-changing technologies can enter into our lives?
So I think all of us emphasize the fact that the problems we're looking to solve are going to require input from multiple disciplines. And the question we're often challenged with is, how much should one person be required to know or required to do? I think it's actually very important that we keep traditional disciplines so that every individual has a very strong foundation and is able to recognize the fundamentals of their discipline, but applied in a variety of different application spaces. So where I would actually like to see all of us go with education is to continue to have very fundamental training in biology or in engineering or in physics, but then introduce opportunities for students from those disciplines to come together in project-oriented fashion to actually address specific challenges that can't be solved by any one particular discipline. That's actually, a few people have mentioned industry and advances in industry. The time that I spent in industry, that was the way that things were accomplished, which is that everyone brought their individual expertise. I think one of our challenges, though, is to bring that type of mindset and that type of training and education into the universities rather than waiting until our students are put out into the world in order to have them experience it for the first time.
This sounds easy, but we know that it is not easy to be done. Conceptually it's easy, but we know that in real life it doesn't happen so easily. So we have to invest all of that. I think we have some few minutes left. So I'm looking at my controllers, and there are questions. Otherwise, I don't play well, but there is a question, gentleman there. Otherwise, I'll launch this. So, can he speak, or do I need to send that to him? I'd rather bring it to you. I'm too dangerous to throw it away. When you push there, you will be heard. Please introduce yourself and tell us to whom you're asking the question.
Hello. 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 My name is Tom Wakeford from the ETC group. It's interesting, we're in the Arendt room, named after Hannah Arendt, and one of the things she said after the horrors of the 1930s and what came after it is, what's important is that we should think what we're really doing. And I think one of the problems I've had with the discussion so far is that what a scientific perspective on a bioworld is doing is shutting out all the knowledge that already exists out there in the bioworld of humans, particularly smallholder farmers who already know how to do biodiverse agriculture that will cool the planet. We know that. It's factually extremely clear that doing biodiverse farming in ways that have been established for a long time with all sorts of innovations we can develop through co-design can cool the planet. And my question to the panel is, there's been little mentions of runaway climate change, there's been little mentions of how we bring in experience from the outside, but how are scientists, how is this program of the European Commission, the Research and Innovation Program, going to systematically involve citizens whose expertise comes from their life experience and doesn't come from the ivory towers? Because if not, Hannah Arendt's prediction of what happened with people who just went through the same mechanical things again and again ended in tragedy. So that's my question.
Unfortunately, your question is not addressed to the panel, it's addressed to the Commission.
Well, actually, I'm interested in the scientists because they are funded by the Commission and they don't want to be schmucks.
So let me
suggestion.
reply quickly to that one myself. Why should we embarrass the panel? And then I'll ask the panel very quickly to tell us 1, 2, 3 words to close down this session. We are here precisely in a session where we would like to hear your views on how we shape that part of the program. You know that there is a consultation or finished or ongoing consultation on the web with all the text of everything. So there, scientists can reply, industries can reply, any citizen can reply. So this is your opportunity, and you have also in the web. Now our panel, we are getting...
Where are the citizens on the panel then?
Where are the citizens on the panel?
On the panel, there are representatives from the industry, there are representatives from the scientists, there are no representatives.
Okay, are you representing the citizens in an organization, on civil, what we call civil society organization? If you are, please say.
I'm not a representative from a civil society organization. I'm a scientist myself, but I am truly concerned about democratizing science and technology. So that's why I came to this session. If we are talking about a co-create session in which we are talking about the future of people and they are totally absent,
yes,
doesn't sound very premise. For example, we are talking about nature and biology here, as the gentleman just referred to. In agriculture, there is all sorts of knowledge which is built transdisciplinarity, as was mentioned earlier. Only transdisciplinarity in agroecology doesn't mean cooperation with industry, but it means cooperation between scientists and farmers.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Barbara van Dijk. I'm from the Science and Policy Research Unit in the University of Sussex.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So it's true they are not representative of citizens. They are citizens, however. Do you have a better way of, because if we bring, I mean, we're not going to enter into methodological controversies here. We can speak, if you want, at the end as much as you want. The web is open. We talk, because it's not, these are not the only events where we use to make our work programs, but colleagues organize specific events on specific topics. So this is not the only place. And it's true, we don't have any representative of citizens, but so apologies for that. I have no more to tell you. Now, we have to close because another session is coming. Anything that you would have liked to say in 2 seconds and you didn't say? Chris?
There's nothing I still want to say. I will just go back to comments I made in my opening remarks that I do believe that it's important for citizens, for scientists to consider how to do what we do ethically and how to do it safely. And I do believe that engagement with the broader community is a part of that. And I think many of us who work in this area have been very open and have consistently engaged with non-scientist citizens. And I don't see any reason to believe that we won't continue to do so.
Thank you. Fernando?
Well, just to point out, as I said before, that we have
been... A bit closer, I think.
Okay, we have been inspired by nature for many, many years, and this is what we are doing again. I mean, we are just sort of reinventing the wheel again, but just with the purpose of, well, sort of helping the planet and helping to produce products in a more efficient way. And this is what we're doing.
Thank you. Eileen.
Yeah, also just coming briefly back to what Chris said. So I think we're talking about possibilities for new technologies here that are more sustainable for the future, and I think we have, as citizens, in mind that that's a useful thing to do for all of us as citizens and scientists. It's maybe also interesting to mention that in the Netherlands we have now a program called the National Science Agenda, where we actually fund projects that are specifically meant to be collaborations between representatives from society, industry, science, and even schools and education. So there is really intended to be a sort of a co-creation from all stakeholders to think about these projects. So it's really happening, and I agree that it's important.
Thank you. Kerstin.
Well, there's no master key to sustainability. So we have a lot of solutions already there, and let's challenge them and discuss them and find maybe the best solution. But still, also the best solution will have trade-offs we have to be aware of.
Thank you very much, Cornel.
So, for me, at the end, the reason we're doing things is because society asks it. If we try to push things towards society, it's not getting accepted. And so if people think of new production pathways for food, it's because there is a need for food, for a growing world population, at the same time having more sustainability. And to be honest, current agriculture is completely unable to provide in a sustainable way the amount of protein we need for our population. So either you drop the world population by a couple of billion people, or you find sustainable routes that don't require large amounts of the Amazon forest or likewise. So we have to listen to our customer, but we also have to give realistic solutions. We're not going to put people without food.
Indeed.
Final word.
No
let's re-steer the way we build technology. So not just using the planet resources, but helping preserving them and increasing them. And thanks to biology, we can try to do that.
With these wise words, I would like to thank you all. Remember, we have a lot to learn from biology to make our industry more sustainable, to be climate friendly. And thank you for being with us. Special thanks to our panel and to Carmen de Vicente, Shannon Regan, and Caterina, who had made possible this session. Thank you very much.